city of Columbus. Horrible, heartbreaking situation. Not just the mayor, the father. The city of Columbus lost a 15-year-old girl today. We know based on this footage.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm just doing some research looking at recent police shootings and just trying to get a grasp on what some of these have in common and what's different from the verdict we saw yesterday. But before we get into that, good afternoon. Good to have you all here. We were not able to come live yesterday with the verdict because it came a little bit late, but we'll talk about that in a little more detail. If you were following us on the market, I'm pretty happy today. I actually sold Amazon up. It took a while. I was way down on it. If you saw me talk about that before, I took a huge loss on that. It all came back, thankfully. I have a big position now in Viacom, which had a spectacular day, and so I'm happy. I will be, and a lot of emails came in about this. I do want to start a Facebook page just for trading and talking stocks, what have you. Everybody knows who watched this. It's a passion of mine to get financial literacy to be a priority in our education system, but also talk about it and make that part of our normal dialogue. And so we'll start that pretty soon. As soon as I have that up in the next day or two, I'll post that on the site. Good afternoon to those that are saying good afternoon. That being said, yesterday was not all that surprising of a verdict. I think we were kind of deciding which one he would get, if only one. Instead, he got all three. And I'll go back to what I've said multiple times. I don't look at this as a race thing. I look at this as there was a crime committed. In my opinion, it was murder. What I watched was murder. Whether the person should have used that knee on his neck is another question, whether that's legal, appropriate, what have you. I still can't get past a very simple issue in that case, that an officer is surrounded by people videotaping, saying he's dying, he can't breathe, that he showed nothing, didn't stop and say, let me check, didn't ask another officer, hey, let me check, that another officer stood in front and was heard the same things, didn't turn around and say, let me take a look. It took nothing to do that. Nothing. There were 4 officers. He was handcuffed on the ground. And every officer I've spoken to has kind of echoed the same sentiment, that clearly something was missing there. Clearly there was a serious issue. This officer, I don't know, was it a bad day? Whatever it was, but an officer should not have that kind of day. That said, what we often do in a society is we take a bunch of situations, we put them and we lump them together. And there are people who want to make it about race, who want to make it about cops versus African Americans or another race or minorities or what have you. There are people who benefit from pushing that narrative. The problem is there is some truth to systemic racism. There's truth to racism. There's truth to the history of our country. There's no question. There's things that have to be improved. There's no officer I've ever talked to that has never said we shouldn't improve things. Every officer I've ever talked to said we want to be part of that conversation of improving things. The mistake we can make as observers, as citizens of this society, is lumping all of these instances together. And I got to be honest, I'm the first one sometimes, when you hear about this 13-year-old boy, Adam, who was shot, and the first headline comes up and you say to yourself, Jesus Christ, not again. Then you hear about that 15 or 16-year-old girl who was shot, and the first reaction we all have is, Jesus Christ, not again. The truth of the matter is that's an inappropriate reaction because it's not Jesus Christ, not again. It's not the same incident. It's drastically, drastically different. And I think it's important that we as citizens who are, I've said on this podcast before, trying to look at things as historians, trying to look at things on the merits of the case, of the incident, how they fit in history, how they fit the facts of the case. And that's how our judicial system is built, right? We don't just say this person was black, he's guilty, he's white, he's guilty. In general, there's, unfortunately some exceptions to that. What we say is, let's get before a court, a jury of our peers, hear all the facts. And we have to, as intelligent human beings, make those decisions as well. And so I looked at the case of Adam Toledo. There are body cam videos that were just put out. And there was a second case. I had to find this woman's name. I don't want to disrespect this story by not saying her name. Well, they didn't say her name yet, I guess. Maybe they have. Somebody correct me. This 16-year-old girl who was shot, allegedly holding a knife. And in seeing the videos in both cases, in seeing what happened, the body cam videos in both cases, it is impossible to make a decision on who's right or wrong. It just is. In one case, you have police. Now, put yourself in this position. They're responding to shots fired. He gets in an alley. Somebody's running. Has something in his hand. Turns around, and apparently in 0.8 of a second, he takes the gun and throws it. The officer shoots him. In slow motion, should a different decision have been made in hindsight? Possibly, yes. But you're responding to a call of shots fired. And it's hard when you think of that officer responding, running after somebody who ran, didn't stop, get on his knees, put his arms up. He ran, is turning around, is in an alley. It's 2:30 in the morning. It's awful. It's certainly unfortunate. But you can understand the pressure they're under. The second case, I will say, give a lot of credit to the police officer and the mayor in Columbus where this shooting took place. Because the press conference, and I can post this link, they did two things that I thought were effective, not in telling us who's right or wrong. I'm not saying police are right or police are wrong, or the person was right, should have killed, should have not have been. They're all tragedies. But they share the video twice. They show it in real time, and they show it in slow motion. And even in slow motion, it looks for the life of me that girl's about to stab somebody else. Kicks one girl to the ground. Boyfriend or somebody else keeps kicking. She runs to another girl. It looks like, for the life of me, she's about to stab her. Shots are fired. And I come back to the same question all the time. Is the national discussion isn't always on who's right or wrong. It's who we're going to give the benefit of the doubt to. The officer responding to the complaint or the victims, the people who are ultimately shot. And the question we have to figure out is, as a society, our court system traditionally has given police officers the benefit of the doubt. If we change that, if we call people to come help, to stop violence, do we start taking away, one, do people want to be police officers? And two, their effectiveness? I don't know the answer to this question. I have been, for about 2.5 hours now, I've been just like, I don't, if I was a jury seeing this, I don't know how to respond. And so the public jumps to reactions either way. We support blue lives, we support black, whatever it is. But the truth of the matter is the answer is never that black and white. And I come back to, without police, we really don't have much of a society. And so I'm going to post these links later on. I want you, take a chance to watch them. We'll talk about them in a little more detail tomorrow night. But you tell me, watching some of these videos, and I know we can make the argument these guys are trained. Yes, they are. But I don't care how well you're trained. In 0.8 of a second, in a situation at 2:40 in the morning, responding to shots fired, what are you supposed to do? You want to believe that this person just gets on their knees and says, okay, the cops are here. It doesn't happen that way. I want to read some of these comments. They're not necessarily in order. So Aisha, she was the one being attacked. So in defending herself, she sadly lost her life. Yeah, I don't know. All I saw was what the video showed from the police officer. So we're trying to say, what did the police officer see? That's the question. Brian Coppola, what's your opinion on the Brantford officer not looking into the police report of Matthew Walker before the shooting incident? I feel like she should definitely be fired. There's no reason for an officer to not do their job. So we said live on the air that day that there were complaints a couple days before. Okay, some of the complaints, as the shooting was happening, we've got some text messages that talked about this. And the question becomes this: what is normal practice? There are complaints made on a regular basis. I can give you an example. I've had complaints made about me, covering stories. A gentleman, we wrote a story about an Airbnb once. He made a police complaint about me, and obviously nothing happened. The police know me. It wasn't that sort of thing. But complaints are made all the time. Did she find out that maybe the person has a history of this? The person has no history of this. Did she know more? Should she have reported more? The question is, what is normal protocol? What are you normally supposed to do? Was there some sort of dereliction of duty in that? I don't know the answer to that. The police are clearly going to look into that. And I'm sure, Stan Konecki, who's the head of the union, will make sure that's, those protocols are followed. And we can have him come on. At some point, we'll have someone from the Brantford Police Department come on just to talk about that day and some other things as well. But let's hold off on asking, did the police officer follow protocols? Did she look into it at all before? Did she realize that she decided there was nothing of substance to it? She could have done that too. It could have been just a wrong judgment call. Or did it very much violate protocol? Should have been reported in some way, shape, or form. I don't know the answer to that, so we can't really answer, what was she trained to do? And did she follow those protocols? And then the question is, are those protocols the correct protocols? So we have to ask this in a couple different forms. Aisha, she was one being attacked, so in defending herself, she sadly lost her life. We know that from knowing the full story, but the officer didn't know that when he went to the house. So we're trying to look at this from the officer's standpoint. Mary, right now there's a position in next year's budget for a police social worker to work in combination with police and Brantford counseling services. That's an important position that is needed in all towns. Brantford is ahead of the game on this. That was proposed a few months back. It will be part of the budget. I can't imagine for a second that won't be funded. We will talk more about that in the near future. But yes, with Peter Cimino and the fire and the police chief, they are working together. Peter Cimino runs the community center, not the community center, I'm sorry, the counseling center. Brantford is one of the towns, East Haven closed their counseling center. Brantford has this. So Brantford is a town that actually puts money into mental health. They have a program. What happens is they get overwhelmed. And other towns close their counseling centers, close their support, and it ends up coming over to us. And so we get overwhelmed with other towns, not just Brantford. But yes, we are kind of ahead of the ball game when it comes to this stuff. There's always going to be cases that are unfortunate, but we are a town that is ahead of the curve, I would say, when this is in this circumstance. Aisha, why are we shooting children? You can restrain a child. Why is lethal force to go for police? They're not adequately trained. So do we know they're children when we get there? I mean, I saw these videos. How at 2:30 in the morning, somebody running from you in an alley, do you know that they're children? You have no idea how old they are. The situation where you saw the video cam getting where the female was shot, I have no idea how old those people are. I know one guy was kicking some girl while she was down. Somebody runs over to another woman and it looks like she's attacking her. We don't know till afterwards. But how do you know? I mean, obviously, if someone's 8, they're 8. But when they're 15 or 16, at 15 or 16, I was, 5'11" and, 180 pounds. I mean, there's no way to know a significant difference in age when you get on the scene. I think what has to be remembered is the police officer is to respond to a call of distress. Somebody is calling because they are, one, under attack. There's violence and assault happening, or gunshots are heard. So let's suppose for a second, in broad daylight, Brantford, those calls about gunshots were heard. And the police officer gets to the scene, and there's somebody with a gun running down behind houses. Who's at risk? Every person in the area. And by the way, we shut down all the way to Starbucks. If you know where the shooting happened near the Richland parking lot, all the way to Starbucks, people couldn't leave. They would hide in the back room because there was a chance this person was out. We didn't know that at the time. The person's running, a police officer runs after them. We don't know if they're 15 years old or 27 or 40. We have no idea. That person turns around with what looks to be a gun in their hand. That officer is probably firing. They're responding to a call of shots fired. They're responding to violence. Now take that situation and make it at 2:30 in the morning. Make it in an alley. We're not making a call on right or wrong here. What we're trying to emphasize, or what is impressed upon me watching it, was I get how hard this is. I get it. I wouldn't want to be a police officer at all. And I am not shocked that sometimes we're having a hard time finding people to be police officers. Linda, I just saw the first line of your comment, so I want to read this. And we may need to have somebody on about this. Training for police academy is way too short. Therapists and social workers go to school for 4 years to get certified, but cops only have 13 to 19 weeks to learn their job and are put on the streets. You know, that's not a bad point. That's not a bad point. And yeah, therapists, they go to school for 4 years. Sometimes they got to go to school for 6 years or longer to get anywhere close to a decent job. Police officers is much shorter than that. Now, usually, most of the police officers we have hired have degrees. Most of, I think, Brantford police officers have degrees. So that can be one of the things. But it's... So, in any event, Richard Atro. Richard is one of the RTN members. The budget position for supporting the PD is a duplication of services that the town receives from BH Care and 211. These organizations provide out-of-hours coverage and follow-up. Richard, I very, very, very much disagree with you. I very, very much disagree with you. There is no position that ties the police and our counseling center together. It doesn't exist. There are other parties that BH Care provides some services, no question. But in working with people who need help, and especially in emergency situations, there is no position that does what this position is supposed to do. So my hope is that you vote for it. And listen, there's no reason not to. Now is the time. The town of Brantford has built up surplus funds. They are in spectacular fiscal shape. Now is the time, in a time of need, that we fund these positions. This is not a duplication of services. It's not. Those are different things. And if we can get these groups to start working together, and they've proposed this, we're ahead of the game. Brantford has consistently been ahead of the game in this regard. We should fund this. This should be part of our budget moving forward. No question about it. It has been a priority for Brantford for quite some time. It is not a duplication, and there's nothing on staff, a town staff, that's duplicating BH Care. BH Care does a lot of good, no question. But in emergency situations and working in those situations, this is not a duplication of what BH Care does. I don't buy that. I very much support this position. The budget vote is next Wednesday, I believe, or next Tuesday. That said, you can discuss that with them, but they're not town employees. So they may do something. So basically, let's say this. If we have a counselor saying we shouldn't have a second counselor because it's a duplication of services, doesn't make sense. In this case, you're adding a town employee to work between town departments. BH Care is not a town department. It's not run by the town. Town employees do not take care of it, run it, period. So you can talk to BH Care all you want. This is a town department. Andrew, he's larger than his father in height and weight. Okay, I'm sorry, Andrew. My 15-year-old son looks like he's 30. Yeah, so age I can't look at as a deciding factor here, especially with an officer responding. Remember, they're responding to a call. Think of a father responding to a call that their daughter's being attacked. Now, police officers are trained, right? They're trained. But in that circumstance, you're going there for the purpose of defending somebody. That's what you're doing. Now, if you get there, claims of your daughter being attacked, maybe you get there, the guy that had done the attack or the person who was attacking your daughter is gone, somebody else is helping her up, easily can be mistaken as the attacker. Police are trained, we get that. But when we see these videos, we can understand this is not a race thing. It's not us versus them thing. It's a response to a safety concern. Kristen, so agree, Linda. Also, though, no matter how long you train, there is a level in the moment under duress thinking that it's hard and very easy to criticize after the fact. It is, and traditionally juries have sided with police. They've sided with the stress and strain of having to make that split-second decision. By the way, many officers have made a split-second decision to save lives. We're not giving that enough attention, but there are many, many videos of officers making those split-second decisions that have saved many, many lives. The point of this discussion was to go back to the verdict yesterday, which in my opinion was right. But we as a society cannot take these things and lump them all together. It's easy politically to do that. And our thinking's that way. When I see the headline, my first thing I think is, Jesus, not another one. But it's not a case of not another one. Each case has its own set of facts. You know, the first instinct of those in Black Lives Matter and those rallies, which may have validity, is to jump to the streets and rally before saying, what are the facts in this case? Emotion gets groups going. It gets people activated. It's helpful politically. It's not helpful when it comes to actual change, understanding real human emotions, real human reactions to things. And then the judicial system, which now has time to analyze those things and make an honest observation on them. I, too, lean towards defending the police in most of these cases. No question about it. Especially seeing these videos. I'm going to post especially with the girl. I apologize that I cannot remember her name. I feel like I'm disrespecting Ma'Khia Bryant. I'm sorry, Ma'Khia Bryant. In that case, they show the video twice in the press conference, at regular speed and then in slow motion. I think most reasonable people would understand that that officer very likely believed he was saving someone's life, because it looks for all the world like that person's attacking someone else. And so just as fired up as we are for the police, against the police, for Black Lives Matter, against Black Lives Matter, as fired up as we are for Biden or Trump or for whatever political party, we have to have that same energy towards stopping for a second, taking a deep breath, and judging each instance on its own merits. Try to do that on this podcast, but on one podcast. As people, as information that we take in, I advocate looking at these things as historians, trying to gather a ton of facts before jumping to conclusions. And I've done that for the last few hours, watched the videos, read multiple articles, watched some of the press conferences, and I still can't come to a conclusion. And that's the difficult situation that every single one of our police officers are in. Are there bad cops? Yes, there are bad cops. We know that because I've seen some bad cops. We've had people in town who were not good actors, who had a history. And usually it's other cops that speak up and say there's a problem here. There's times that reports come into us and we relay that. One person was on social media posting things that were inappropriate, things that are racist and sexist or what have you. Those things happen. East Haven had a few nightmares in this regard. No question about it. When you have the feds coming in investigating, you probably have a problem. So it doesn't mean we can't be on top of them. It doesn't mean we can't hold them accountable. It doesn't mean we have to just pick the side of the police instead of any other group or any other race. But we saw yesterday, and there was almost unanimous support. There were some people on social media that said the verdict was wrong. I don't know how the verdict was wrong. I watched a murder. I watched a murder in that case. I still can't get over the look on. I think he has one hand in his pocket with a knee on the guy's neck, on the victim's neck, as people standing there of all races said, "You're killing him. He can't breathe." And he didn't even move. Something's wrong there. We could all see that. But let's not put all these instances, like the media does. Here's another case. Here's another case. Here's another case. It's not another case. It's a situation with a very different set of facts, a very different set of circumstances, and needs to be judged and looked at in that light. Okay. Later on, not tonight, but tomorrow, I will post that financial group on Facebook. If you'd like to join, you're welcome to. That being the case, it's raining out. It's not very nice. But I hope everybody has a really good minute. 9 minutes. I'll just go over some of these comments. 9 minutes was nuts. There's nothing. I don't know. There's no answers for what he did. Just a few comments, Linda. But why are their first instincts to shoot instead of de-escalating this? That question's been asked many times. Their first instinct is to protect the alleged victim. Right? That's their first instinct. They are there to help. And if there's a threat, their first instinct is to neutralize that threat. Like people have even asked, like, why don't they shoot in the leg? Because you can still shoot. That person can still get off a round, still stab somebody. The job of the police officer is to neutralize the threat. In all these videos we're watching, the response really was either guns in their hand or knives in their hand, and looked to be in a situation that they're either turning around. With a police officer, get on your knees, put your hands up. That's what you do. Is it right? Who knows? Well, even in Taze, you had a situation where an officer pulled the wrong thing. It was a mistake, clearly. But a taser doesn't just neutralize somebody immediately. There's more to that, too. Somebody can still fire around after that. In a circumstance where you're stopping somebody else from hurting another person, not necessarily the cop, in the case with this young lady, it looked like she was an inch away from stabbing her. From the video I saw, especially fast, but even in slow motion, it looked like she was an inch away from stabbing her. And Lorena, that statement could not be more true. It is going to take good cops to make change with policymakers. I think the good cops are looking to do so. What they don't want to see happen is what we kind of saw last year was legislators jump to something. It has to be X, Y, and Z to kind of appease the group of people that were pushing for that law. There are other ways to go about this. But that said, that had to happen. But yes, the good cops are the ones that have to speak up. The blue line cannot exist. The good cops are the ones that have to come forward, not expect to get repercussions, not expect to be impacted by the union, not expect to lose their jobs or be hated by other cops. When we start celebrating the good cops for coming forward, we'll have real changes in the department. Because I will tell you, in my experience, the good cops know who the bad cops are. Every time there's been an issue with a bad cop, you talk to the good cops, it's like, yeah, we saw some signs there. We saw there was some stuff there. That's what needs to change. Michael, police need to not be afraid to turn in bad colleagues. I absolutely agree. Taser needs to be closer, may not get through heavy clothes. Yeah, I don't think the answer is a taser in some of those cases, but what have you. So I have covered the police for a long time. I have nothing but respect for the vast majority of them, even ones that have given me tickets. And seeing these cases and seeing how the juries have ruled, there's many cases I say, I see how the jury ruled that way. I see how the jury defended the cops. I get it. They're responding to situations that are crazy and trying to make a decision. They say, get to your knees, but it doesn't do it, and they run instead. He comes out and says, calm down, stop, stop, stop. You see a woman kick one to the ground and run to another woman. It looks for all the world she's about to stab her with a knife in her hand. He defended that other woman. Rightfully or wrongfully, you can see the decisions being made. You can understand them. This is very different than what we saw from Chauvin. Very different from the murder of Floyd. And we can't rush to the conclusion that it's just another one of the same thing, because it's not just another one of the same thing. They're very different circumstances, very different officers, and a different set of facts that go into these things. Okay, guys, thanks for joining me today. We'll be back again tomorrow. I'm supposed to have Robin Comey on at some point. I will see if she wants to come on tomorrow or Monday. I know I tried to schedule that, but we had no power for a week or something like that. I do want to get her on, though, before the session is completed. I know there's some laws she's been working on. So we'll try to get her on in the next couple of days. We'll try to get some of them from the Brantford Police Department on as well, and have a conversation with them at some point next week. Guys, thanks for joining me. I will see you tomorrow at 4 o'clock. I hope you all have a great night.